You know, the most dangerous people in your life? They're probably not the ones you see in horror movies. The real threat, the one that just quietly sucks the life out of you day after day, well, that often comes from the ordinary people all around us.
And that right there is the key. These behaviors we're about to break down, they aren't usually coming from a place of malice. Nope, they're defense mechanisms that have just spun completely out of control. And they're coming from people we work with, people we're friends with, maybe even people we love. Their internal wars are causing some serious collateral damage, and you might just be in the line of fire.
So let's unpack 6 of these personality types, these energy vampires. And more importantly, I'm going to give you some clear, real-world strategies to protect your own energy and, let's be honest, your sanity. Ready? Let's get into the first one. Okay, first step, the perfectionist. Now, we often mistake this for someone who just has really high standards, but it's so much deeper and more damaging than that. They're obsessed with the tiniest details, not because they care about quality, but for a reason that's way more vulnerable. See, to really get the perfectionist, you have to understand this psychology. At its core, perfectionism isn't about being perfect. It's a shield against shame. The perfectionist secretly, deeply believes that if they are not flawless, they won't be worthy of love. I mean, just look at the legendary director Stanley Kubrick on the set of The Shining. He made actress Shelley Duvall do one simple scene 127 times. The result? Her hair started falling out. She had a nervous breakdown. Yeah, he created a masterpiece, but at what cost to the people around him?
So how do you actually deal with this? You can't win a fight about quality with them. You just can't. So instead, you have to change the game. It's a strategy called the limited resources technique. Here's what you do. First, you acknowledge their high standards. You say, I know you want this to be amazing. Then, you clearly define the real-world limits. We only have 2 days, or this is the entire budget. And then, you ask them to solve the puzzle. What is the absolute best thing we can create within these limits? It's brilliant because it shifts their brain from this impossible, endless search for perfection into a practical problem-solving mode.
Next up, we've got the people pleaser, the yes man. We tend to see them as kind, agreeable, easy to work with, right? But that constant agreeableness, that's actually a huge red flag. It can lead an entire group, your team, your family, to make some truly terrible decisions. This is perfectly summed up by something called the Abilene paradox. So the story goes like this. A family is sitting on a porch on a boiling hot day. Someone kind of randomly suggests, hey, let's drive 50 miles to a diner in Abilene. And everyone agrees. So they all pile into this non-air-conditioned car, drive through the desert heat, have a lousy meal, and drive all the way back. And it's only when they get home that it comes out that not a single one of them actually wanted to go. They all just said yes because they thought it would make everybody else happy. See, people-pleasing isn't kindness, it's a trauma response. It's about avoiding conflict at all costs, even if it means driving everyone off a cliff together. So the key here is you have to flip the script for them. You have to raise the cost of them just blindly agreeing with you. So when they agree a little too quickly, you pause and you express concern. You say something like, I get the feeling you're agreeing just to get this over with. But honestly, I'll be much more upset if we run into problems later because you didn't share your real opinion now. You're basically showing them that safety is in honesty, not in fake harmony. All right, let's move on to the drama creator. Oh, you know this person. They are a magnet for crisis. Every single day brings a new catastrophe, a new fight, a new disaster. But here's the secret. They're not finding the drama. They're creating it. For these folks, a life without crisis feels unbearably boring. It actually makes them anxious. They are, and I mean this literally, addicted to the adrenaline and cortisol that comes with a full-blown meltdown. The poet Lord Byron, he was the poster child for this. His life was just a whirlwind of scandals, debts, and duels, not because he was unlucky, but because he was terrified of peace and quiet. He needed that constant storm just to feel alive. Now, listen, here's the most important part. You cannot try to solve their drama. That's just playing their game. The real solution is to starve the fire of oxygen. It's called the gray rock technique. When they come to you with their latest crisis, you give them nothing. No shock, no anger, no sympathy. Just flat, boring responses like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. When they realize they can't get that emotional hit from you, they'll move on and find a new audience. Trust me. Okay, number 4, the insecure controller. A lot of people think control freaks are just hungry for power, but actually psychology tells us the exact opposite is true. Their need to micromanage every little thing around them comes from a deep, profound sense of insecurity. They just don't trust the world. The tragic story of billionaire Howard Hughes is a pretty chilling example of this. This guy was a brilliant innovator, but his OCD and his fear of germs completely spiraled. He locked himself away in dark rooms, terrified of this invisible world he couldn't manage. And get this, he wrote these incredibly detailed, multi-page manuals for his staff on how to do the simplest things, like how to open a can of peaches. It was all a desperate attempt to control his external world, just to try and silence the storm that was raging inside his own mind.
Look, fighting a controller head-on, it just makes their anxiety worse and it makes them double down. The smarter play is to give them the illusion of choice. You do the hard work. You come up with 2 possible solutions, and here's the key. Both of them have to be options you are perfectly happy with. Then, you just present them with a question. Here are 2 ways we can handle this. Which one do you think is best? They feel like they're in the driver's seat, but you've already decided where you're going. Now let's talk about the procrastinator or the deadline addict. The common myth is that they're just lazy, but that is almost never the real story. Procrastination is not a time management problem. It is an emotion regulation problem.
When a procrastinator looks at a hard or boring task, their brain literally registers it as pain. And to avoid that feeling of pain, it looks for an immediate hit of pleasure, scrolling Instagram, watching a YouTube video, anything. The writer Victor Hugo knew this struggle intimately. To force himself to finish The Hunchback of Notre Dame, he had his servant lock away all of his clothes, leaving him with only a giant shawl. He couldn't go outside, so finally he had no choice but to sit down and write. So you can't just tell a procrastinator to get it done sooner. Their brain is terrified of how big the task is. The trick is to lower the barrier to entry way, way down with the 5-minute rule. You just say, you don't have to write the whole report. Just spend 5 minutes, that's it, writing the first couple of sentences. This triggers this amazing little psychological quirk called the Zeigarnik effect. Turns out, our brains hate leaving things unfinished. Once they start, that little mental itch to complete the task often takes over all by itself. And our final type, the overthinker. This person is stuck in what we call analysis paralysis. Their brain is this incredible machine designed to calculate every single possible risk. And they get trapped trying to find the one perfect decision. And what happens? They usually make no decision at all. This is my favorite illustration of how even an absolute genius can fall into this trap. When Charles Darwin was thinking about getting married, he actually made this pro-con list. He tried to turn one of the biggest, most emotional decisions in life into a simple math problem. He's literally weighing children on one side against more money for books on the other. He got so stuck in his own head, he almost drove himself crazy. Here's the most important thing to remember. You cannot help an overthinker by giving them more data. That is like giving a drowning person a glass of water. They're already poisoned by information. The only antidote is action. Action. You have to break that mental loop by getting them to engage with the physical world. Just nudge them toward a small, low-stakes experiment. If they're agonizing over which phone to buy, tell them to just buy the cheapest one first to see if they even like the operating system. Action is the only cure for overthinking. So, there you have it, your complete energy protection toolkit. For the perfectionist, you use limited resources. For the people pleaser, you raise the cost of agreement. For the drama creator, you become a boring gray rock. For the controller, you give them the illusion of choice. For the procrastinator, you apply that 5-minute rule. And for the overthinker, you nudge them toward action. Recognizing these traits in other people, that's the easy part. But the real work, the most important work, starts when we look in the mirror, because these aren't just 6 characters, they are human defense mechanisms that we all use from time to time. So the final question, the one I want to leave you with, is this. Which one of these energy vampires might be living inside of you?